Okay, welcome in everybody to the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. I'm Brad and I'm here with my guy Jacob Dunn, and we're back again to talk more fantasy basketball. Jacob, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, my man. Basketball right around the corner. I can taste it, my man. I can't wait.
All these trades, all these offseason movements.
Yes,
it's
sir.
perfect. The NBA offseason is like no other offseason in the big four of American sports. Players change teams constantly. It can be hard to keep up. So we wanted to highlight some old faces and new places so you can have a better understanding of the new landscape of the NBA. So without further ado, we're each going to get into 3 players that change teams that you should be rostering and 2 players that you should be avoiding. Jacob, let's start with you.
All right, so first up on my list is TJ Warren. After missing most of the past 2 seasons, TJ Warren signed a 1-year contract with the Brooklyn Nets. Some of you may have forgotten, but Warren was a steady contributor in points, rebounds, threes, and steals before going down. Before these past 2 seasons, Warren was extremely consistent over his past 3 seasons, averaging 19.3 points, 4.5 rebounds, 1.1 threes, and 1.1 steals during that span. All right, with Bruce Brown leaving for the Denver Nuggets, Brooklyn needed a go-to third scorer behind KD and Kyrie, and I think Warren fits that bill. All right, whether he starts or comes off the bench, TJ Warren's move to Brooklyn is a fascinating one that I think will get his career back on track. So if you need a scorer along with decent rebounds, threes, and steals, look no further than the 28-year-old out of NC State.
Now, Jacob, I know you had him as one of your busts for our Sleepers and Busts show a few weeks ago, but I'm really high on Malcolm Brogdon. I know he's coming off the bench, but he'll see starters minutes. Since 2019, he's averaged at least 30.9 minutes every year since, so I'm not worried too much about his role considering he was brought on board to be the pure point guard that the Celtics have been missing. He's averaged 7.1, 5.9, and 5.9 assists since 2019, and he's going to be on a team with the best shooters he's ever had in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. He also averaged 15.5 points for his entire career. I don't expect him to take more than 10 shots per game, but he last averaged 10.5 shots in his sophomore season and averaged 13 points that season. So I think we can expect double figures in points, around 7 assists per game or better, and he averages 1 stock per game for his career. He's a former 50-40-90 guy. He's going to have a modest ADP this year with his role off the bench. Also, if there's an injury to Marcus Smart, or the team decides to start Brogdon, you're going to have a potential all-star on your hands, and you will have been able to draft him in the middle to late rounds. I'm a big fan of Brogdon.
And next up on my list is Andre Drummond. Drummond just signed a 2-year, $6.5 million contract with the Chicago Bulls. All right, the Bulls desperately needed some rebounding help after averaging just 42.3 rebounds per game last year, which was good for just 28th in the NBA. Okay, in just 19.7 minutes last year, the 29-year-old still averaged a solid 9.3 rebounds per game, which ranked 17th in the league. Okay, I believe Drummond gets a lot more run in Chicago than in Philly, and I can see him playing 20 to 25 minutes per game, backing up and playing alongside Nikola Vucevic, which would equate to monster rebounding numbers along with decent points, blocks, steals, and field goal percentage. Not to mention, my guy Brad over here has Drummond down as the greatest rebounder in NBA history, and I know he agrees with me on this pick.
Yes, sir. All right, for my next pick, I'm going with Bruce Brown. Nikola Jokic, a load-managed Jamal Murray, a load-managed Michael Porter Jr., and an Aaron Gordon that is often an afterthought in this offense. That gives Bruce Brown all the usage in the world to put up big numbers. It's not the per-game averages last season that will catch your eye, which is exactly the kind of thing that keeps someone available in the late rounds. It's the fact that when the Nets needed someone to lean on last year when Kyrie was out, or KD was off, or vice versa, they relied on Bruce Brown. Brown's game highs last year were as follows: 23 points, 12 boards, 8 assists, 5 steals, and 4 blocks. Now, will he put that all together in one game? That's unlikely. But he has the ability to put up big numbers, and in this Denver offense that will have plenty of nights without MPJ or Murray, they'll need Brown to step up.
And last up on my list is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. All right, the Denver Nuggets traded away 2 key pieces to secure the 29-year-old's elite 3-and-D services, and I love it. All right, the Denver Nuggets wanted to shake things up and get an elite defender who can hit threes, and that's exactly who they got. Over the past 3 seasons, Caldwell Pope is averaging 1.7 threes and a steal a game to go along with 10.9 points, 2.7 rebounds, and 1.8 dimes. Okay, Caldwell Pope should start and play 30 plus minutes per game for a contending Nuggets team, which should equate to plenty of threes and steals along with solid points, rebounds, and assists. Always an underrated fantasy asset. Make sure you round out your 9-cat teams with KCP.
All right, and to round out our old faces and new places, I'm going to go with Jerami Grant. Now, he's not my favorite player in the world, but that doesn't mean he won't be a fantasy asset. Dame will be back, so that'll take some usage away from Grant. I also expect Anthony Simons to take on the CJ McCollum role, as I do believe that Simons has arrived as a scorer, but the Blazers have always needed a scoring wing, and that's what Grant provides. He averaged 19 points on 15 shots last season, while also providing 2 stocks per game. He doesn't rebound well, and he won't be expected to with Nurkic still there, but he can fill it up, and that's what you're paying for. Portland was 27th in adjusted offensive rating last year and 16th in pace. With Dame back in the mix, they'll improve on both of those fronts, making the third choice scorer on this team still an attractive fantasy asset.
Now, first on my list for old faces and new places that you should be avoiding is Malik Monk. All right, Malik just signed a 2-year, $19 million contract over the summer. The 24-year-old enjoyed a career year last season where he averaged 13.8 points, 3.4 rebounds, 2.9 assists, 2.3 threes, and 0.8 steals. So why don't I like the landing spot? Competition. All right, the Kings have a surplus of guards, including De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, Kevin Huerter, Terrence Davis, who just came on strong last year in limited time. The contract he got suggests he's going to have a big role, but he's not taking touches away from Fox or Sabonis. Then he'll be fighting for touches with Huerter and Davion Mitchell. I just don't see a world where he repeats those numbers in Sacramento. I see his numbers from last year dwindling down to about 12 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and maybe a steal. And that's not enough for me to take anything more than a late round flyer on him.
All right, for my first player to avoid in old faces, new places, I'm going to go with Jalen Brunson for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned with Malik Monk. Jalen Brunson has been the talk of the town in New York. Honestly, most of it has been slightly negative from my vantage point. Basically, he cashed in on a big year in Dallas to the tune of 4 years, $104 million contract from the Knicks. If the Knicks thought he was that much of a game changer for them, they wouldn't constantly be in rumors to add Donovan Mitchell to the mix. Oh, by the way, they just signed RJ Barrett to an extension worth nearly $120 million. So let's recap. The team has Julius Randle with a 29% usage rate, RJ Barrett with a 28% usage rate, and Emmanuel Quickley with a 22% usage rate. Enter Brunson, who played beside Luka Doncic, bringing in his 22% usage rate to the Knicks. I'm smart enough to know that someone, or a lot of someones, are going to have to learn where they fit in this new offense. We have no way of knowing who that someone will be, and I'm not going to draft Brunson assuming it won't be him.
All right, and the second guy on my list is Thomas Bryant. All right, Bryant agreed to a 1-year veteran minimums contract over the summer after missing most of the last 2 seasons with a torn ACL. It's surprising to me that someone as talented as Thomas Bryant could only fetch a 1-year contract because before going down, the 6'10" big man was averaging a career-high 14.3 points through 10 games, along with 6.1 rebounds and 0.8 blocks. The 1-year deal with LA signals to me that other teams weren't willing to gamble and pay up for his services after the injury. He's betting on himself this year, but there's a few reasons why I don't think he's worth a draft day gamble. 1. Fellow signee Damian Jones is one of my favorite sleepers this season and is the more healthy big man out of the two. Damian Jones even got a 2-year deal, which tells me LA values Damian Jones over Thomas Bryant. 2, I believe the only way Thomas Bryant has any fantasy success this season is if Anthony Davis goes down for any extended period of time. And yes, I know, AD has been brittle over the past couple years, but I'm not going to draft Bryant because AD is injury prone. It's a waste of a roster spot. If AD goes down, stream Bryant.
All right, and for my last pick to avoid, I'm going with Otto Porter Jr. Now, Otto Porter has the opportunity to start and probably at worst see starters minutes off the bench for Toronto. As a lifelong Wizards fan, I can't emphasize how bad an idea that would be for Toronto in real life and on your fantasy team. He's got some nice stats as a borderline 50% field goal percentage for his career and 40% from 3 for his career. He'll grab you 5 boards per game and averages 11 points for his career with 1.5 stocks. The problem is that he does his best when he has a defined role on a team. On the Warriors, it was 3-and-D off the bench. He had a 121 offensive rating and a 104 defensive rating. He had similar numbers in his last 2 seasons with the Wizards, when he was expected to be the number 3 option and grow into a potential star. It's those middle years where he was just a body that he wasn't at his best in Chicago, and I'm worried that's what he's going to have to deal with in Toronto. Fred VanVleet and Siakam are the 1A and the 1B. Then you have Scotty Barnes, who's a budding star on both ends of the court. So what's Otto Porter supposed to do? 2 years and $12 million is the contract he signed, which implies a little more than a 3-and-D asset. And I assume he left Golden State because he would have a bigger role and they weren't going to offer the same money. That plus his inability to stay healthy over the course of the season gives me a lot of pause. I'll be fading Otto Porter Jr. Alright, that's going to do it for our old faces in new places. I'm Brad, and you can follow me at @SirBradleyK.
And I'm Jacob, and you can follow me on Twitter at @AintDoneYet, and Dunn is spelled D-U-N-N-E.
As always, you can find us on the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and check back in every week for new fantasy basketball takes. Peace.
Cheers.